Hello, everyone, and welcome to ScoreVision Advantage, a podcast where we share the latest happenings in sports tech and fan engagement. I'm your host, Ashley Peterson, Marketing Director here at ScoreVision. In today's episode, we have returning guest Charlie Megan, co-founder and president of Scoreboard Media, and the president of ScoreVision, Mike Medrano. Our discussion today is all about the hottest trends in the sports tech market and our predictions on what's to come in sports advertising. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to the ScoreVision Advantage. I am joined today by Mike Medrano and Charlie Megan. Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself.
President of ScoreVision. Happy to be here today. Thanks for putting this on, Ashley.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you joining us. Charlie, how about you?
Charlie Megan, I'm president and co-founder of Scoreboard Media. We work with high schools and advertisers or sponsors that want to support high schools. We're the leading company for media rights in the high school space.
Perfect. Well, we've covered a lot so far on the podcast, so if you haven't listened to the prior episodes, you definitely should go back and listen to them, where we kind of dissect a little bit from an 80s perspective what you should and should not do, where to invest your time and your money, and who you should be talking to and who you shouldn't be. But we're going to talk a little bit more about future innovations and what's happening here at ScoreVision, but also where the future of advertising is going in sports. So I think one question that probably comes up, I'm going to guess relatively often, is what happens when the economy kind of takes this weird downward turn a little bit from an advertiser's perspective? What can I as an AD expect as far as what's going to happen with my budget?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm never one to try to predict what's going to happen, but it seems like this recession has been 1 month away for 18 months. And so thank God we didn't all just sit around sucking our thumbs. You just have to move forward. But I would say a couple things. I mean, will there be, if there were to be a recession, would there be a pullback in ad spend? I would argue there's already been a pullback in ad spend, and it's a vast universe of ad dollars. So I don't think it will affect us at the micro level to any degree that would change my planning or probably should change a school's planning. But one of my favorite parts about this space overall is that I think it would be the last thing to get cut, right? The first, because there's a real connection between these sponsors and the community. And so if if it's a business owner and their child goes to school where they're sponsoring, I'll make the bet that that'll be one of the last areas that they cut. But even so, I think there's so many sponsors. There's so many sponsors. There's so many ad dollars being spent and being distributed. Ad spending doesn't go from 100 to 0. It's somewhere on a spectrum, and we just have to compete for ad dollars. I mean, I think that's where it probably matters that we have the people and the expertise to go after it, and the time, maybe most importantly, to really apply both feet on the gas pedal. But I hope that. We're not slowing down regardless.
Good. I know that's probably really comforting for all of our listeners. I do think you bring up a really interesting point, though, that local connection with businesses. Would you say that for most schools, and if you go back and listen to the previous episodes, like I said, you'll kind of get a touch on what the recommendation is as far as who you should be talking to try to obtain sponsors. But is that part of the benefit of sticking with your local community? Like, you don't need to be talking with these big national brands, right? And that may change that a little bit as far as what happens when something does take place, like a recession.
Definitely. I mean, if you were only working with national brands, then you can expect to get cut off at the knees at the first time their budget gets cut. And national brands' budgets get cut all the time. And then they go back, and you can't live or die by those decisions that get made in New York and LA and way outside of our communities. So look, when you get that business, and I think one of the advantages maybe to working with Scoreboard Media is we have those relationships, and where those brands want to buy in your local market, we'll be able to play matchmaker there. But our bread and butter has been and probably always will be the local sale. That's going to be your most consistent thing, and that's not as driven by what's going on in Washington or Wall Street or anything else as you might think. It comes down to there's people going to high school basketball games and soccer games and volleyball games and football games, and those people spend money in your community. And if you're a business in that community, there's no better way to reach them. So I don't worry so much about the macro. I think it just comes down to blocking and tackling at the micro level if you're going after the right people.
Yeah, I would say, at least in our experience, sort of data sample size of our universe of customers, national advertisements have not really been a factor, simply because there hasn't been really, probably up until, I don't know, let's say the last 24 months, a mechanism for these national advertisers to effectively canvas down to the high school market. So it has been primarily local, maybe even regional, but primarily local advertisers who've had any effect in high school advertising.
Yeah. That actually segues really well into my next question, which really kind of goes and stems from the foundation of where ScoreVision was built and how this mechanism has now arrived in the market. Can you maybe just give us a little bit of background on what that's looked like and how that's transformed over time?
Yeah, sure. I would say one of the pillars of the ScoreVision ecosystem was advertising literally from day one. We have a patent on that, literally the ability to, in the cloud, upload digital advertising content and have that convey all the way down to a venue or a campus and push. This can be done at a singular level, a regional level, or the universe of our customers. So we've been thinking about and planning for advertising being an accretive aspect to the onboarding of ScoreVision and then permeating through a campus, really to sort of offset any expenditures or capital expenditures that a school would incur by bringing this new technology into the campus. So that's been at the forefront of our mind from day one. Our company started at the end of 2015, 16, let's say, beginning of 2016. So for the last several years, that's been, front of mind. I would say with some of the partnerships that we've made just recently, we've seen this play out in a little bit more of a macro level. But early days, we had customers coming to us and saying, hey, we love this advertising ecosystem, but can you do it for us? Mm-hmm. And so we did on a limited basis. And I think it was really for us to, one, further understand, and two, help our customers. I would say, so since that experiment, what we've seen is much to what Charlie has said, is that the majority of advertisers, so we went and tried, obviously not as sophisticated as Charlie and his team, but we went out to national and regional advertisers. I would say that the feedback that we got was scale wasn't quite there, so it was a little chicken and an egg. For instance, let's say they liked the Nebraska market, but they wanted all the schools, not just two of the schools. And this is maybe early innings of our history. And so now that we have more schools that have the ScoreVision system, it becomes a little easier of a talk track talking to regional, national advertisers. But it was primarily these local companies that were sponsoring the school. And so we don't see that changing over time. But with the technology that we've built and where we're taking it, it has enabled, let's say, a company like Scoreboard Media with school's permission and an agreement to access the system. This has been fairly recent. And they can, as a third party, jump onto the school's platform, get these connections with these advertisers, and effectively manage and deploy an advertising campaign to the benefit of the school and the sponsor without any intervention by the school or by ScoreVision. The school and Scoreboard Media are working through a relationship whereby Scoreboard Media, a third-party company, can access their platform and then perform the functions that they're being asked to perform.
So we're really giving you your time back as an AD. Like, you're not having to worry, or even a superintendent. Like, you can be as involved as you want to be, but you don't have to be involved at all. Really, Scoreboard Media is able to take all of that, put those advertisements in for you, and let the system run itself.
Yeah, that's true. And I would say one more thing. So what we've seen, and again, how we've built the system is I would say that there probably are some analogs out there, right? There are some companies like Scoreboard Media who procure the advertising sponsorship dollars. The difference is how do you execute that? And that's where I think we start getting a little bit of a separation in terms of how does the technology execute on that function. And I would say most systems, if they have the capacity to do that, you have to. It's a little bit more manual. You get the advertising. You either have to put it on a thumb drive, you have to transfer it to a computer, and then somebody has to play that. Literally push the button to play that or stop it or some user intervention, where ours is very automated. Literally, Charlie and his team, wherever they are in the United States, can upload the content. It's constantly downloading that to a local computer, and then it's sequenced such that it plays without intervention. And so I think that's where it takes the AD or whoever's performing that function out of the day-to-day operations of having to affect the advertising campaign, which frankly becomes just one more thing in a list of overwhelming things to do on game day.
Well, and very near and dear to the sponsors will be proof of performance reporting. Sponsors, particularly at a national level, are going to want to know how many impressions it got, how many times it ran, and they expect pretty specific reporting on that. And previously, that would be impossible to do at any scale for a national advertiser until ScoreVision did what they did. So I think that has removed, if you think about it from a national advertiser's perspective, if we have to put it on 100 zip drives and send it to 100 athletic directors and expect that they'll execute and then provide proof of performance reporting back to us to provide back to the sponsor, there's so much friction in that process. And ScoreVision has completely taken the friction out of that. We can upload it all from Chicago, put it into the 100 pipes that it needs to go into within about 30 seconds, and it's running. And then we have proof of performance reporting that night for the advertiser. That's a game changer. That's more than like a small change. That is the difference between getting these campaigns from a national level down to high schools, which has previously not been done, and doing it.
You're touching on something that I'm already super excited about. So we're going to head into kind of talking about some of the new innovations and new tools that are coming out from a ScoreVision perspective that, fortunate for us, we've had our great friend Charlie over here helping us to get ready to launch this. So let's touch a little bit more on expanding our audience or our consumer base a little bit more, where we're launching a new product called SVTV. And I believe Scoreboard Media is joining us on that, on our first test school, if you will, pilot school for this new product, right? That's
right. Yeah, that's really exciting. And it's, in fact, here in Omaha, Nebraska with Millard Public Schools. So we'll be deploying that later this summer. What's fascinating is that display, let's just say a TV, requires no hardware. So we just took the price point of the capital expenditure required to implement a digital solution from thousands of dollars to effectively very little money, all leveraging the existing infrastructure in the cloud. So the same advertising cloud features that he has come to expect with connected systems to LED, which is, I would say, the primary medium that our software connects to. But we're very agnostic. So if it's now connected to a TV, it works as well as the systems that were connected to an LED.
It's really exciting because it definitely opens up a brand new market for us as far as what the affordability aspects are for the consumer. And in addition to that, being able to provide a more widespread covering from an advertiser's perspective, right? Because you can buy this if you want as one middle school, or with the price point being where it's at, you can open it up to your entire district and say, here you go, here's all these TVs. And now all my advertisers are on that, which is
there's
really
exciting. Two big topics within this one question. The first is how you've expanded your market, right? So with the case of Millard Public Schools, we had 3 high schools, 4 venues, including their district stadium. And so you look at that as sort of the top of the pyramid. But then if you extend the pyramid down, and each of those high schools has a feeder, as a series of feeder middle schools. So in this case, we're doing 6 middle schools. So just think about what that does to the number of people that will now see that messaging. Because the bottom of the pyramid is so much wider, it's not linear, it's geometric in terms of the number of people that we're reaching now. And that's a big deal, especially when you consider that it's by far the cheapest component of this. So we didn't get into this to necessarily be in the middle school sports marketing, but when you look at it in terms of the entire market, it just vastly increases the number of parents and of people in the crowd that we're able to reach. The second part of that question, the second part of that question is the money that Mike talked about. I mean, they're the investment. And we did one middle school board a couple years ago, mostly just as a function. That's what they wanted, and it just worked out. And so we weren't looking to do a middle school board, but we did it as part of a larger package. But it cost us like $50,000, and that is almost. I mean, I guess I won't get into specifics, but ScoreVision and what Mike did with SVTV reduced our cost by 90% on or thereabouts to do now 6 middle schools. So, that's Moore's Law at work, I suppose, but it's really like ScoreVision's innovation that has made that possible. I mean, by extension of the same math, that would have cost us $300,000 or $400,000 to do that same project, which would have been prohibitive. And now we're able to bring that service to middle schools. And the middle school, like the school district in general, is thrilled to bring this technology to middle schools, which is kind of one of a kind, right? I mean, there aren't very many school districts in the country, if any, that are going to have a similar thing. I suspect that we'll see more of it. I mean, I think based on the price point and based on sort of the market advantage, I think that it will give us. I suspect that we'll see more of these.
I think Chad Zimmerman's the district AD, and I would say Millard has been very forward-thinking in terms of a lot of things, but as it relates to sports and how to introduce technology and make that additive to the school environment and the community. And I think that's how they sort of squared bringing this type of technology down to the middle school level and really preparing these kids in middle school for the high school experience. And so we're thrilled about this. I think it does play very, very nicely for middle schools. I don't think there's really been any technological improvements in the athletic venues, particularly for middle schools. And this is just so easy to use. And I think if there is an opportunity to bring sponsor dollars down to the middle schools, I think that those particular ADs are going to be very, very excited, because that has just been a barren wasteland in terms of bringing in money.
Yeah, I mean, an LED is not really an affordable option for a middle school, but when you start talking about replacing a traditional fixed digit scoreboard, which some middle schools do have, but not all, and then in addition to that, depending on the middle school, you may have more than one court that's playing at a time, and you're putting those TVs in there. I mean, you're opening up the door, for more events to happen at your facility, whether it's through the middle school's athletic department or it's through a youth sports team that you're then leasing your venue out for. So like the door really becomes more open the minute you start putting new technology into your gymnasium at that level. And not even to mention the academic benefits, right? Because once you get a TV in your facility, there's a lot you can do with that outside of even sports.
Yeah, I mean, you should mention the academic benefit. It's been one of my favorite sort of perks of doing this. I never suspected that. You know that it's going to be good for athletics. You know that teams and coaches are going to love it, and the crowd likes it, and sponsors like it. But now my eyes are open to the fact that now there's a whole segment of kids that run these boards that previously might not have been involved in high school sports, and now this is their thing, and they've gotten really good at it. And over the course of a couple of years, now you see them advance on and do this at college, in college. And so now to be able to bring that down to the middle school level, I mean, I think it'll blow you away to see what kids are able to do with this stuff. And even if there's not a parent or faculty member telling them what to do, they'll show you what to do with it. And I just think that the power of that is exponential. It's not linear.
Yeah. Growing their interests a little bit more too and what they specialize in. I know we had a guest on the podcast that I think that episode will launch after this one or close to, where he talked about that with his son. He wasn't a big sports guy. His son wasn't. And he found a different avenue for his son that still was in sports, but was through the creative process of just being able to learn how to keep score or just learning about how to put on a game. I mean, there's so much more to sports than just playing on the field or playing on the court. So I think that's great. In addition to SVTV, I also want to talk about our fan app, which is another display outcome of our system, where that also has advertising in it. So rest assured, it's not just happening in venue. Your advertisers are really not limited to just what's happening when a game is being played inside of a gymnasium or on a field. It goes far beyond that. Can you maybe just describe a little bit, Mike, what FanApp is and what it does?
Yeah, sure. So FanApp is as the name suggests, is an app that you would download primarily, I would say, to your phone and receive content as a fan would. So without any extra effort, a school athletic facility is hosting a game. This can be both home and away. So our technology works literally. If a school is a purchaser of the ScoreVision system, they obviously are going to use it for their home games, but they can take their scorekeeping apps on the away games, the other 50% of their games, and score with their scorekeeper, and it goes to the cloud, our ScoreVision cloud, and then from that point, it pushes out to effectively any endpoint. But we have apps, one of which is a fan app that is the recipient of that data. Both highlights, live streams can be embedded, and then the scores and some statistics of those games. And so, again, just like you would be scoring, which is a function you have to do at game time, they don't have to do anything extra. It just automatically pushes to the cloud and then out to a fan app. So somebody who's not able to attend the game, or a parent that's traveling, or anyone for that matter, can select that particular team and follow along for the game.
And all of that is embedded with sponsor messaging. The same sponsors that are on the board are also, on the fan app.
We basically have a radio button that the administrator of the system can toggle on or off. The on would be it pushes all the content that's captured at game time to the fan app. So as Charlie mentioned, that also includes the advertisings that would be pushed in venue, also pushed to the fan app. And so we just deposit an interstitial ad. So let's just say Charlie, in a basketball example, scores a 2-point shot, then you score a 3-point, and then it places an ad. I forget exactly what the algorithm is, but every so often we drop and deposit an advertisement in the play-by-play, along with tiles that are deposited that can be linked back out to. Our sponsors really like to see it go back to their company. So let's just say, I don't know,
They might have a landing page if they really want to track whether people are engaging with it. They might create a specific landing page. So, plumbing, a plumber might have it, and then in that sense be able to track how many people.
It's the power of the landing page. We use that a lot here at ScoreVision for our own marketing, is being able to say, yeah, let's link to this. And if there's, for us, there's a specific conference where we're attending, and so we create that landing page so we can know that during that conference, how many views, how many clicks, how many everything did we get, so that we can look back and say how effective really was.
Yeah, and if that's
piece.
daunting, of course, they don't have to do that. They can just go to their homepage, but they have that ability.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to track that. I do kind of want to touch a little bit more too on what FanApp is able to do, even outside of just the tile advertising, but we do allow for different sponsorship placements within like created content for the FanApp as well, right? So if you have every single profile that's on the FanApp is personalized for your school. So if you're creating that, you're also able to put sponsors on that. And then in addition to that, if you are getting ready to share any captured highlights, you also can add something on top of that as well, where you can then incorporate your sponsors. So really there is a lot you can do with the system as far as incorporating them, so that your sponsors and your advertisers really feel like they're getting the best bang for their buck. I also real fast wanted to kind of backtrack a little bit more onto SVTV, because we didn't actually describe very much about what all SVTV does, because it doesn't have our production aspect of it yet. And whether or not we get that route will be a whole different time for a different era. But it does do the scorekeeping aspects of it. Outside of that, is there any additional added benefit to, I guess, being able to run advertisement on that? Like, are they able to see cinema ads or anything around those lines?
Yeah, good question. I would say the original use case for SVTV, and this is sort of, I would say, market driven. So we had customers coming to us saying, can we make this a lighter version, both lighter in terms of installing and then expending dollars to put a system? And so the answer was, let's figure this out. And I would say the outcome of that was maybe a little less functionality. You sort of talked about the producer. So maybe for people who don't know the ScoreVision system, the typical deployment has a scorekeeper and a producer working simultaneously. You can effectively run a game with just the scorekeeper, but most of our installations, they're running both of these apps simultaneously. And the producer app is basically a distillation of a video production team on an app. So the ability to change the layout, to bring in a live feed, to switch things and play on-demand content if somebody wanted to put a school announcement in the middle of the game. So that's what the producer does. It does require some hardware to switch with an LED video processor. So there's a little bit of a hardware or technological lift that is coupled with the ability of doing that. So we really felt like the SVTV, if we wanted to take the lightest iteration of our technology and deploy, we wanted to just focus on the scorekeeper. And it does give us a little bit of producing capabilities, but it's the lightest iteration that we've ever developed. So there's no player, there's no video processor. It's literally what I think many people in the industry would call an IPTV. It's an internet protocol pushing down to a TV. These TVs are hooked up to the internet, and the scorekeeper, this can be run, which is really novel, on any phone or any tablet, so it's cross-platform. It connects to the TV because the TV is broadcasting a signal that then our app reads and it mates. And so you can score an athletic contest. What we've developed so far is what we call a universal scorekeeper. I would say that's akin to the old technology, meaning a fixed digit scoreboard. So it's a home, away, but we have the ability to customize that with color palettes and with naming. So it's a little better, but it's effectively changing numbers and handling time. And then we've also built a basketball scorekeeper, which is very intuitive, like our intuitive scorekeepers, which is a basketball game played on that TV. The advertising capabilities are the same that we deploy in our full system. And so you sort of brought up the cinema sequences. I would say you have a banner ad that's capable, and it's all programmatic. And standby sequencing is really what would be this cinema ad. It takes over the entire TV. And so that can just be run in pregame, postgame, or during timeouts. And again, it automatically starts rolling. You don't need a user to intervene. So proof of performance is effectively whenever that TV was on.
Right. So it's not just like this small little thing that's at the bottom of the TV. I mean, but during every single aspect of the game, there is something on the screen that could be triggered that you are able to then have this full screen mode, whether, like you said, it's a timeout or a halftime. Which,
yeah, very engaging.
Yeah, which is super nice. I know too, like if you're at a youth sports event, you have sometimes a little bit of downtime before the next team gets rolling on that same court or whatever. You could effectively still have advertising playing even if you are not playing a game.
Exactly.
And can we clarify that these are, we're calling them TVs, and they are, but they're enormous. I mean, they're effectively
85-inch TVs, right?
Yeah, they're 85-inch commercial-grade TVs that can take a basketball in the face, right?
Yeah.
And it's like the Jumbotron at the middle school level. So I think ScoreVision, for their part, has been really consistent with, they brought the Jumbotron experience to the high school level and now to the middle school level. So I just want to be clear that these are not like wimpy little TVs that you see in the corners of the conference rooms or something. These are effectively Jumbotrons at the middle school level.
And you're able to purchase all this within a package, correct? And in addition to that, we should probably mention the basketball version of this also comes with shot clock functionality too,
That's right.
which is also huge because you may not use a shot clock at your middle school level, but that goes back to being able to bring youth sports in and other people who are using shot clocks in your facility.
Yeah, that's and I would say it's probably no small feat to be able to do this, but the ability to use an app. So we have an app that functions in this case, if we're talking about SVTV, a TV to make it look like a shot clock. But when it's not in shot clock mode, it's a multimedia display that can be used for anything. But it's really pretty slick.
It's exciting. I can't wait for this thing to really hit the market. I know it's going to take it by storm. So Okay, well, I think that's all we have time for today. So thank you guys so much for joining us. I know it's going to be an exciting time here at ScoreVision. We'll be sure to keep people updated as new developments come out. So thank you again.
Charlie,
Thanks for having
thank
me.
you.
Thanks.
Yep. Thanks, Ashley.
Yep.